We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
Specializing in metal parts, machining, and fabrication since 1960, Girding Enterprises has excelled in the machining process. A truly American company, Girding Enterprises has gone from one-man shop in a basement to a world-class machine shop with over 20 employees. We strive to uphold the highest level of quality while constantly improving our efficiency level in order to offer the most affordable prices to our customers. Visit us online at girdingent.com or give us a call at 636-274-9802.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their story to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with MisFitNation. If you're a musician or actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share some of your tips with the MisFitNation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you're a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and share how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you're a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and just share your story with the MisFitNation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or are embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you're a new listener, welcome to the MisFitNation. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast apps and also on our YouTube channel at @_MisFitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date with our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show. All right, we are live on your Sunday night on About Face Radio, Heroes Media Group, and across all our social media platforms. Just to reiterate what happened the other day, our friend and brother from the Marines, Paul Kludak, took his life. He left his Facebook post with his final farewell to the world. He could not fight the demons, could not fight the darkness anymore, and wanted to get some rest. If you are having those same feelings, don't hesitate to reach out. You have friends, you have family that will reach out, they will drive to you, they will get you, and they'll take you to the right place to get you to the better place. We need you here. Just remember that we need you here. With that, our next guest is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. He is also the founder of the Price of Freedom Foundation. He was born into a military family, and like most military brats, he got to move many times before he entered high school. He went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship and began his own 24-year career, retiring as Lieutenant Colonel. He has held many various management roles in several companies, including most recently AmeriSys and Chamberlain University. He resides now in White House, Tennessee, and plans to make that his home. So without further ado, let's welcome back from our 8th episode, Dennis Schroader. How are you, Dennis?
I'm doing great, Phil. Or Rich, I'm sorry. I was thinking of somebody else. I apologize. I'm doing great, Rich.
Awesome. Like we said in the pre-show, it's great to have you on again. You are our 8th episode, just over 2 years ago in March. I think March 29, 2021 is when your show aired. So It's been 2 years since we talked about the project, and many people are new to the show now. I'd like you to just dive in and tell people what the project's about, and then we'll go into where we are now.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the Price of Freedom Foundation is an organization that's a 501c3 nonprofit. I started this about 4 years ago. The purpose of this is to collect, preserve, and tell the full life stories of those who paid the ultimate price for our freedom, those who died all in uniform, all serving in our nation's armed forces, whether that's active duty or the reserve components. We want to do more than simply what you're going to see here in about another month when Memorial Day rolls around and you see the tributes that are going to be aired. Most of those are going to be fairly, they're sincere, and I don't take anything away from them, but they don't do a deep dive into the stories of the people who died serving our nation. And I felt that the families and the friends and the legacy of our brethren and our sisters who served alongside us deserved more than that. So what we do is we take a deep dive. For the most part, we start with the Gold Star families, and with their permission and assistance, we find as many people that knew their fallen loved one from childhood all the way through to the end of their life. And we ask each person to help us tell that story. And we ask them to sit down and do an in-depth interview. Sometimes it's going to be kind of at distance, like, kind of like the show in a sense. We'll have a conversation that we record and ask that person to tell as much as they can about the person we're honoring. Now, and that will include people that knew them as a child. So if parents are living, we want to talk with parents, siblings, schoolmates, boyfriends, girlfriends throughout their life. If they had children, if they're adults, we want to talk with the adults. Basically all their veteran colleagues. And then we ask for things that help to tell the story. So things like copies of personal letters, photos, videos, those that have been, whose loss happened since the advent of social media. We'll ask for access to the social media accounts. And we take this whole amalgam of stories and material and give it to a writer whose task will be to write the full story, a full biography from beginning to end, weaving all of that together into, with a continuous story, one voice. Because I've had people say, hey, well, in today's world, everybody's on social media. You can find out all you want, but it's a mess. I mean, it's hard to make sense of all of that. So the writer's job and task is to make sense of that entire story. We produce a written book. Our goal is to have a 150-page book or more in terms of page length that we then give to the family in hardbound legacy edition at no cost to them. And we provide a copy of that as well to every person who participated in the interviews. And we intend to use the videos, recordings to create a video documentary. Eventually, when we have the resources to do so, that's exactly what we will do. We currently are working with 4 families. Our very first family was the one that we were probably talking about on that first show. We started working on that first story about 2 years ago. And that book is ready to, it's at the publisher, it's complete. We just don't have a launch date set. I'm hoping it's going to be within the next week or two. We've titled the book Silent Soul, the Machinist Mate First Class Alfonso Abdel Amos story. And it tells the story of a a Navy machinist mate who at 18 and a half years of service in the Navy was lost at sea off the USS Kitty Hawk in October of 1998. And it's been a tremendous experience from my standpoint. And when I talk to the family members, it's been a great experience for them too, because it's been a voyage of discovery for them. Nobody has the full picture of our lives except for ourselves. Everybody else has a slice of it. And so every single person that we've interviewed has been able to tell us their slice, their piece of it, and nobody had the full picture. So being able to pull all these pieces together has been a rewarding experience for them, even before the book is published. The other piece to this, and something that we're just recently trying to encourage veterans to do, is to start with a veteran and ask the veteran who may have lost a buddy to pay tribute. So, whether we do it through an interview process like this, or whether the veteran just comes on and makes their own little, video, it doesn't matter the length. It can be as long or as short as you want. But I know that there's something positive about paying tribute to a fallen comrade. And so that's another piece. As we get those, what we'll also try to do is reach out to the family, the Gold Star family associated with that fallen comrade, and offer them the full services. But it's our very first veteran that I spoke with in this regard was a Vietnam War veteran, and at the end of the interview, he is a friend of mine here locally in White House, Tennessee. Said, "Dennis, I don't know why I didn't agree to do this for so long. It took about a year and a half of my kind of pestering him from time to time." And he'd had a certain specific nightmare that he'd had for 50 years, every night. And that the night after we had that interview, he said it was the first time in 50 years that he didn't have that nightmare. So don't know that it could have that kind of a dramatic therapeutic effect for other veterans, but I just know that it's always a good thing. Always a good thing to be able to honor our fallen.
Definitely is. And you made a key point there. He was able to sleep the next day. And I noticed in my own journey that when I was finally able to get stuff off my chest, I felt much better after I got stuff off my chest. And that it took a long time. It took a long time for me to be seen. Well, me to realize I had a problem, then me to get seen after that. But once I did, I've seen the light. I said, "Oh, now I know what to do." So when I started the show, I think I told you when we did the last episode, the last time we chatted, when I started the show, it was to get veterans on here to tell their story so they can take that deep breath and exhale. And kind of what you're doing in a way different format, a way better format than we are. We're both doing great things for people, but I think what you're doing is great for not just the family, but like you said, all the people that you interviewed along the way. They get that piece too at the end, and they're able to sit down at their coffee table or wherever their love me room is. They can sit down there and talk about Machinist Mate 1, Alfonso Abdal Almos, and still have their bourbon that night and say, "Hey, I remember this dude, man. This dude was funny. Good God, he was funny." And
he was. And that was a cool thing about him and this story. Of course, every story is going to be different. Every story is going to be unique because we're all unique individuals. But every person that we interviewed said that he was the kind of guy that loved to make you laugh and loved playing music, kind of the life of the party kind of guy. Our author titled the book Silent Soul because, like a lot of guys I know, a guy that I was when I was younger, I never spoke about anything that bothered me to anyone else. Kept it all inside. Well, Alfonso kept it all inside to the end, and so it was a great challenge actually for our writer to to pull that together when you really don't have any material about his own thoughts and what was going on. So you have to do a lot of kind of conjecture and pull from the interviews of his wife and his shipmates, etc., about, you know, what was going on in his life. What do you think he was, you know, what was going on in his head? How did he feel about this thing or that thing? And our author was a guy by the name of Keith Hayden, and he's an Air Force Academy grad, and he's now a military spouse living in Okinawa. He's published 2 prior books, one a book of fiction and another a nonfiction book on language learning skills, and had a heart for doing a project like this. But he had also spent his active duty time in the Air Force as a criminal investigator. And he brought to my awareness and brought his skills to bear that we really need researchers to be able to flesh out other details. So an example would be when Alfonso was lost at sea, the ship that he was on, the USS Kitty Hawk, was transitioning between South Korea and Japan, and there was a storm at sea. He was able to get information about exactly what was going on with that ship, why it was moving from one place to another, the conditions of the you know, not just the weather and the tactical situation they were in. You know, back then, still Cold War, nothing hot, but, you know, with North and South Korea, there's always that level of tension there, and be able to paint the picture of all the geopolitical forces that were going on and how it most likely affected Alfonso. And so that's really something that we're now looking for, are people who can be researchers for the next 3 stories that we're currently working on, to be able to look at details of, you know, this person was lived in these locations at these times, was assigned to these bases. What was going on? You know, what sort of exercises were going on? What sort of conflicts may have been going on? So that we can
day-to-day
fill
stuff
in the details around the stuff that we get through the interviews. So that's definitely, you know, for folks listening, if they want to support us, we definitely could use some volunteer researchers. And of course, we need some writers too, because Keith did such a fabulous job. And he was in a position where he didn't need upfront money from us. And we weren't in a position where we could provide it either. So we're going to be paying him a royalty once we get book sales coming in. But it took him 5 months of his life to do this project. And so, you know, there's very few writers out there that are probably going to be in that same position. But if there are any that have a heart for telling the stories of those who are no longer with us and cannot tell the stories for themselves, we need you. We need you, and we've got 3 families waiting for you. So, yeah, that's kind of where we came from that episode 2 years ago to now, and it shouldn't take us 2 years to get the story done. About the last year has been much more of a process of trying to figure out all the nuts and bolts and details that I didn't know before about the publishing process. So what's taken us almost a year to figure out, we can knock out in about a month or 2 for the following books.
Thanks to that learning curve you've had over the 2+ years you've been doing this now. I mean,
Right.
you learned so much along the way doing Machinist Mate 1, Amos's story, along with the other families as well. You're doing it all simultaneously. But you're learning so much along the way. Now, as they come in, it'd be a lot easier because you've learned so many business lessons, life lessons along the way with this. And
Right.
I think you said something awesome earlier. I mean, he was in the Navy 18+ years. So that's a lot of time away from his home, a lot of time away from his family that he grew up with. To get those stories from his first part of his life, the first chapter, and then mix that with that second chapter of life to bring this product that has to bring chills to you as you're reading it. You've already seen the finished product. You've been able to see the whole thing, the story, and say, wow, his family's going to love this when they see this thing and know everything he did throughout his life.
And yes, and we've shared the manuscript with a couple of his, in his specific situation, he left behind a wife and 3 small children who were 5, 10, and 12 at the time. And now the children are in their late 20s to mid 30s. And we've shared it with his 2 daughters. And so they've had the benefit of seeing it, especially the youngest, because this was really kind of, it was a project for her. She and her siblings had been trying to piece their father's story together for a year on their own, because she had 0 recollection of her father. The 2 older siblings had some memories of him, and they just were not getting very far. And not to put any aspersions on anybody, but it was the older folks in their family, kind of my age and the like, that were saying, "Oh, it's happened so long ago. It's water under the bridge. Everybody's moved on. You all have successful lives, etc." But it was a question for her, and so this has been kind of a voyage of discovery for her. So we wanted to make sure that as we progressed with this, that she was kept appraised of everything that's been going on. In fact, I just had communication with her today because we're trying to find a way to get this into a video documentary, and we just don't have the connections, and we don't have the experience, certainly, in doing this. But also there's some resources too. But it's like the last thing I want to do is to go out and say, "Hey, give us money," and we think it's going to be this much, without really knowing for sure what it's going to cost us to do this and to do it well. So my hope is that I can have a conversation with maybe an indie filmmaker who's had the experience of creating a film and taking it to some sort of market, so that they can say, this is what the pathway is, and this is how much it's going to cost approximately, so that we can maybe go out and make an appeal to our followers or do a Kickstarter campaign or something like that, so that we can actually get this into video form. Because the book is really there for current and future generations. In this family's case, none of the siblings have had any children, but I know one of them is planning to. And so she was telling me how she valued this as something that when her children in the future are old enough that they can have that, to be able to tell them about their grandfather. But the videos are really where we want to be able to tell the story to the public as a whole. Because as you probably know, working with Gold Star families, that the number one most common issue amongst Gold Star families is the fear and actual realization that outside of the immediate family and friends, within a year or two of the loss, their loved one's been essentially forgotten. And the way to help mitigate that is to be able to tell their story truthfully and honorably in a video format, so that it can be out there and people can see it, and it can reach an audience on an ongoing basis that is broader than that family can reach on their own. So that's the 2 kind of main drivers for what we're doing, and what I intend to spend the rest of the days that the good Lord gives me on this planet to do.
I think you're doing great things, and something came to my mind when you were talking about the videography. We have a lot of universities here in Tennessee, especially down by you. Mm-hmm. You could have you thought of reaching out to one of them to see if you can get an intern to do it from one of the students?
I've talked with several. It's been a while. I mean, so we were still dealing with COVID and the lockdowns and the like, but I had some conversations on the video side, because there's a couple of art schools here that do video, etc. The biggest challenge that I that they have with what we are trying to do is it doesn't fit well within an academic curriculum and time frame. And so that's been the biggest stumbling block that I've had thus far. But, you know, I have it on my to-do list to reach back out to, I understand MTSU has a great, large student body of veterans that I'd like to be able to somehow get the word out to that says, hey, this is what we're doing. Would any of you be willing to come and help us? You know, whether it's, and if we can work something out that works within gives you academic credit for it, we'd love to do that. But you know, otherwise, you know, we're still looking for people like the handful of volunteers I have now who do it because they have a heart for doing this.
Right. That just popped in my head when you were talking about that. So I know a lot of them need that. They need that extra stuff to get their degrees anyway. And that's one thing that push more. Usually it's their last semester. They get to do an internship or fellowship outside of the school building where you can do it. It doesn't have to be paid, but you get paid in experience basically. So that'd be pretty awesome for them to do that.
It would. And I have a sort of a background in education. My master's degree is in education, though I got that when I was early in the Army back in the 80s. Of course, the Army didn't really put me to work that in that field. But the job I had just prior to starting this nonprofit was really with Chamberlain College of Nursing. So, and there I was doing outreach to military and veteran nurses that were wanting to advance their degree. But it's like, so I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of the educators there, and I have a sense for what they would need in terms of doing the write-ups and the structure of the plan, et cetera. And so I'd be more than willing to craft what any particular student may need to meet their academic requirements.
Definitely. I mean, it's a win-win for both of you. So I think they'll jump on that as soon as you give them the right verbiage, I guess, for that, to make that work out. On your website, you have two more of the veterans on there, two more of the fallen that we have on there. You have James Bernard, Lee Gordon, Sergeant First Class U.S. Army, and you have Senior Airman Daniel James Johnson. Tell us a little bit about those two guys.
Sergeant Gordon was a Vietnam veteran. He was, according to his daughters, he was the soldier, and he was in Vietnam for several tours, leading soldiers. He was infantry. I'm not certain if he was special forces off the top of my head. I can't recall. We do have his military records, but I don't think he was special forces. But he was out there, and he was, basically leading soldiers into combat, and protecting, especially the young soldiers. He was an E7 by the age of 27. And he was killed in Vietnam, not in combat, though. He was killed in a helicopter accident. I've read the accident report from the time. Basically, they were in a flight of several helicopters. They were basically looking for enemy to engage with them, and the helicopter that he was in developed transmission trouble, loss of hydraulic fluid, and they were attempting to find an airfield or a landing LZ where they could put down safely, and catastrophic failure. The helicopter, the Huey that they were on, crashed, and ordnance that was fuel and ordnance combination was not good. There were no survivors. I think there were 11 that were on that particular helicopter and died that day from that. And he also had 3 children that he had left behind. And so we're in the process of, we've interviewed several of the family members. We what we really need to do, and I really need the researchers to help me with this, is to be able to dig into the details of, where he went to school prior to and his joining the Army, trying to reach out to those alumni associations to see if we can find anybody who remembers him. Maybe they were friends with him in high school and the like, so that we can have some additional points of view about his life. And we really are just barely getting started on our next, the airman. I've had conversations with his mother, and in fact, next Saturday, she's going to be here in Nashville, and I'll be meeting up with her and speaking with her more directly. Like I said, a lot of times we really need the families to be able to provide us a starting point and to say, okay, here's some people that we know. So I've had a long conversation with his mother, and so I have her perspective, but we really haven't got beyond that yet. And hopefully, we'll have that soon, but we're not on a production timeline.
Right.
It really is a matter of at what pace is that family wanting to go. Right. So we do need some things to start with, and if they're not ready to provide that information yet, then that's fine. We'll wait. That's the case. We have another family that the mother has said she's willing to go forward, sent her the agreements that we need, the legal documents, etc. She hasn't returned those yet, but she will. I know she will. And that's kind of where we're at with that. But my vision for this is so much larger than that, because you and I both know, just in service member, soldier, Marine, Navy, Air Force suicides, yes. We have hundreds every year, and that's horrible that we have that many. And it's also something on my heart that it's like, I've heard from the Gold Star families that suicides those families are excluded from the Gold Star family program. Now, I may be wrong about that, but
not anymore. They're not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay. All right, good.
But unlike when say like machinist mate Almas or Sergeant First Class Gordon, when they passed, they got contacted right away and welcome into that family kind of thing, Gold Star family. I think with suicides, the family really has to, especially if they're already out of service, they have to reach back and get the ball rolling to come back and get that support.
And what I really, my belief is that those families in particular need to be embraced and supported, because there's still such a stigma around suicide. So I want to be able to tell those stories, and we want to tell those stories as tragically as they ended. I believe that if we tell them truthfully, honestly, and honorably, that you can take a tragic story and help others to learn something from it. I know myself, the whole issue around suicide is one that's close to me, because I had an aunt who committed suicide when I was very young. I myself, at age 17, I was so messed up in my head, but it's like I had my father's loaded .38 revolver to my right temple, had my finger on the trigger, and was about to pull that trigger when a thought came to me and asked, what do you think your parents are going to think when they come home and find their oldest with his brains blown out all over their bedroom? And in that situation, I was not angry or upset with my parents. This was all about me being crazy, stupid, self-condemning, etc. All these thoughts going through my head. And that thought made me take my finger off the trigger and put that away. But I know how close I personally came to it. And I also wrestled with depression and oftentimes suicidal thinking throughout my Army career. So I know that there's a lot of folks, and I've known other folks, other service members that I didn't know closely. But my last regular assignment out in Hawaii, there was a commander of a reserve hospital, physician, by all outward appearances, had it all, who committed suicide while I was stationed out there, and it just shocked and upset everybody. So it's something that I know we feel an affinity for trying to help those that are thinking that way to live another day and to maybe get some help with. Not that, I mean, because I'm thinking about myself. It's like when I was going through this, would I have changed my thinking if somebody said, "Oh, you need help"? No. In fact, that probably would have pushed me further away. But if we can influence them to say that there's people who are going to miss you, that you're important, that no matter what the situation is that you think is you can't get out of, that truly if you just sit and you just be still, that it will pass, because that's what happened with me. It passed. I went through these what I call mental storms, where I would be berating myself, sometimes out loud, but with the most vile, disgusting things you can think of. And over time, when I'd start to fight those kept getting worse. So what finally seemed to work for me was to simply find a place where I could be alone, and made a commitment to myself that I wasn't going to go anywhere. So like basically it never happened here, but it's like if I had a closet, like I've got a nice big walk-in closet right behind me there, I'd just go into a closet, I'd sit down, I'd close the door, and I'd let that mental storm just go, let it rage, let it do its worst. And my only commitment was that I was just going to sit there. And I did. And usually after an hour, maybe two, it would pass, and I'd be able to get up and continue on. So my encouragement to those who may be having similar kinds of experiences is to reach out if you're willing to, because there are people who are willing to listen and be able to be a buddy to just kind of not have solutions necessarily, but just to be there and share the pain with you. And otherwise just to kind of let it wash over and see another dawn.
Yes. That's why I tell them in my intro there, I say, if you see the darkness, stop. Think about those around you. Think about who's going to miss you. Think about all those things. I've had 3 Marines on here. All 3 of them attempted, had the same situation as you, pistol in hand, ready to go. And all 3 of them had a divine intervention of some sort on one attempt. And the second attempt for 2 of them had a second attempt where they finally woke up and said, "Hey, I have something to live for. I have a purpose. I can run forward. I can do this." My friend Paul last week, he lost a battle, and he, like the person you were talking about earlier, super successful. He had his own detail business outside Chicago. He's a detail king of Chicago. Yeah, realtor, always happy, always smiling. I met him in Nashville on a soldier's ride. Big personality, great dude. And it was just a shock. And he wrote the whole thing on Facebook at 4 a.m. I guess knowing that no one would be up at 4 a.m. to see it, to maybe stop him. But it's a cry at the end of it. But he'll be missed, and he's a great story. And his funeral is this week, April 30th. Will be his funeral up there in the greater Chicago area.
Yeah, it's always a loss. It really is. And, it's like, I join with you in your heart and your efforts to help those that are wrestling with this, like I was. And thank God, I don't know, I can't point to any one specific thing, but I honestly have not had any of those kinds of internal fights or conflicts or mental storms in probably maybe 10, 15 years, something like that. I just, my hope and my prayer is that for those that are wrestling with this now, that they'll take encouragement that, from those of us that have been on that brink and didn't think that there was a point to going on and didn't think that there was going to be an end to the pain, that there is a better purpose to stay on and stay through it, and that we can't see it necessarily from that point of view, and that where that position is. Looking back, we can. Looking back, I can see it. But when I was in that spot, I couldn't see it. But I'm thankful that I had made that commitment to myself to just stay put.
Right. and look at what that decision did for you now. So you were 17 and you went on to fulfill your college career, then your entire military career, retired at the rank of lieutenant colonel.
Right.
Went on to bigger and better things after that. And now what you're doing is even bigger. You have a purpose. So
yes, God had a purpose for me. And it's like, I have 5 adult children and 14 grandchildren. They wouldn't be here. None of those would be here. So it's like, yes, it's so much easier to see in retrospect than looking forward. It's like, I believe this is I guess a divine calling for this project, because I really want this to be able to be offered to every Gold Star family, and for this to go on far beyond my years on this earth. But it's like, who knows? I don't, you never know what the future is going to hold. And I just believe that one of the things that I loved about the military was, and that I see here, is that we believed in a purpose greater than ourselves. And that's what I'm seeing here. And I think a lot of times, thinking back when I was out of the service, and I was unemployed for a couple of different times for more than a year at each stretch. And it was really, really, really hard to be able to say there's a purpose to your life, Dennis, and especially having achieved the rank of lieutenant colonel. It's like, you're not supposed to be unemployed. You're not supposed to be considering becoming a janitor to keep it, the bills paid and the lights turned on. You had achieved so much, and it's like it was a very humbling experience. But I also know how difficult it can be sometimes to say, that there's a greater purpose for you individually in your circumstances than what you're seeing now. And it's I believe it. I really do. I mean, it's like the folks that I see in any circumstance, any situation. I'm working with some guys locally here with some men's groups, some of them that are involved in some drug and alcohol recovery programs, some that are working with folks that are homeless. It's like there has to be you have to be able to help the people who are in these dire, miserable circumstances to see that there is hope, and there is, even though they may not be able to see it, and that's part of why it ties so closely into my Christian faith, because that's one of the things that it was always taught. You don't see it. There is a hope beyond what you can perceive. And so that's what we try to help folks to do, is to see beyond the circumstances, beyond the mess, beyond the misery, that it's not always going to be that way. It doesn't have to always be that way. And so anyway, that's I don't know how I got down that rabbit hole.
It was good. That was a good segue there. It was awesome. Especially after this week that the Misfit Nation had, and knowing that our brothers and sisters are doing this at a rate of what is reported as 22 a day. It's something that needs to be talked about, not hidden. And I talked to someone on the phone the other day, and they went on to say, about COVID being, they were angry about COVID because no one talks about the mental health aspect of everyone's problems. It's not just military veterans; everyone's going through mental health problems. It's an epidemic for a lot of people, and that's something we need to start screaming from the rafters. Let's get this help and make it make it that it's okay to go get it, and not say, hey, you're messed up. You go in that room over there and don't come out for a while.
Right. Exactly. And there's a fellow veteran that's here in White House. We became friends since last July, and what brought him here a couple of years ago was that he had tried to kill himself. In fact, he'll tell you that he actually died for a few seconds, and his experience was facing God and being brought back to life. And it really changed how he perceives people and the like. And so what I value about him is his ability and willingness to have very direct and open conversations with people about what's going on in his life, what's going on in their life, and be able to get beyond just the gloss and the glaze and the masks that we put on. And whether that's just in our social environment, our work environment, or our churches, because there's a lot of that goes on in all of those settings. There's a lot of folks that are hurting in a wide variety of ways, and it makes a huge difference. He has personally made a huge difference in a lot of guys' lives and the lives of youth in our community by being willing to have that conversation, hear what's going on with them, and just be able to be there with them in that pain or that mess or the like. It's just phenomenal, and I'm in awe of him and what he's doing, and we're encouraging him to start his own ministry, but it's like we'll see what happens that way. But I think that if we were all willing to be able to say, hey, we're going to be open and honest. I'm going to be open and honest, and it is safe for you to have a conversation with me about what's really going on in your life. I think a lot of us, I know myself, when I was in the service, when I was in uniform, I never found anyone that I felt would be safe for me to have the conversation about the suicidal thoughts that I had. Because there's always the risk that your career would be over. Back in the 80s and 90s, yes, they were trying to encourage people to go and seek mental health counseling, etc. But when you do that, what happens next? Your security clearance at minimum gets flagged. Sometimes it gets pulled. If you think you want to make the next rank, that's not a good career move at all.
Especially back then.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes we think, well, if I tell them what's really going on, they're going to think worse of me, or they're going to, this, that, or the other thing. It's like, we have to create environments where it's truly safe to have that conversation. And it starts with the individual. It starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with, being willing to sit down with a person face to face to say, self-disclose. This is what's going on with me. And I'm willing to make myself vulnerable to you. And therefore, hopefully you'll be willing to reciprocate. But anyway, that's where I hope more people will get to, so that we can reach more people. And whether it's think ideas about suicide, or just being discouraged by all the stuff going on in the world and in life. It's like, hopefully we can support, encourage, and uplift one another in real ways.
Definitely. I have that same hope. And listeners, make sure you heed the words that we're talking about here, and understand that there's people out there that will help you, people that will answer that phone, will pick up that phone. Or if you drive to their house and say, "Yeah, I need help," they'll take you inside, and they'll sit and talk to you, or sit on the back porch, wherever you want to be, and chat all night if you need to, just to keep you with them. And also, listeners, Dennis said this earlier, he's looking for researchers to help him with his next few veterans he has on there, and those into the future. He can't do this alone. He needs help, and this is a great project to help keep the legacy alive of these young warriors that we have lost, men and women that we've lost. And his project is a great way for you to jump in and help him out, and help the project out, help the project keep moving forward the way it should be. So, Dennis, how can someone get in contact with you if they do want to become a researcher, or if they're listening and say, "Hey, I know videography, I can jump in, maybe help Dennis out a little bit"?
Super. Yes. Well, they can call me directly at 615-389-1867. That's the phone that it's a cell phone I carry with me all the time, but it's dedicated strictly to the Price of Freedom Foundation. You can visit us on the web at www.priceoffreedomfoundation.org. You can email me at info@priceoffreedomfoundation.org. You can visit us on social media. We have a presence at the Price of Freedom Foundation on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can message us through any of those channels as well. So, but I'd say if you've got somebody that wants to reach out to me and have a conversation, either the email or the direct phone call or text message are probably the most effective ways to get to me. I should also, I also want to put out, the call for veterans who want to pay tribute to a fallen comrade. Please, we'd love to hear from you as well in that regard.
Definitely, brothers and sisters, if you're out there and you've lost your brothers and sisters either in combat or even after service, reach out and let's start getting their stories written down, and just their legacy can live forever, instead of just on, like Dennis said earlier, when organizations go to Memorial Day and they say a name but they don't know anything about the person. It's better to know a lot more of the story than just say Senior Airman Dennis James Johnson and bow down for a second. It's better to say his whole story. He's the EOD veteran. Obviously, just off the pictures, I can see it looked like he was an amazing dude. But
yeah, and I'm super excited to get not just his mom's perspective, but the other that knew him, because yes, he was an amazing young man, and as I get details about each of these families, it's like there isn't a one that isn't a phenomenal story to be told. And so, and if there's a Gold Star family listening, we definitely want to hear from Gold Star families. I believe there's value to you and to your loved one's legacy to be had, and by telling that story and telling it completely. So, are we well resourced? No, we're not yet. But hopefully, with the publication of our first book, we'll get some more attention. People can see, hey, these guys aren't just talking about what they're wanting to do. They're actually here's their final product, and it's a good story, and they did it well. So hopefully, we'll get the backing of folks who are in a position to do so. Maybe some corporate sponsors or the like. That would be great.
Awesome. Dennis, again, it's been great catching up with you after just over 2 years. Time flew there. Yes, it did. You're doing great things, and we're on the cusp of the first book coming out. Can't wait till you send me that email or a message saying, "Hey, we're there. We got it." it's out there, it's published, so we can
hopefully this week. Hopefully I'll have a date.
We can blast it out on our socials and help you out and help you get a machine. Just made one Amos's name out there, and so everyone can read his story and understand his life and his legacy.
Great. Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank you.
It's been an honor to be here with you, and look forward to talking again sometime, and we'll chat more maybe offline about who I may be able to refer to you for future guests here for your show. I love what you're doing.
Outstanding. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com to catch up on all of our episodes and also to get some of that great Misfit Nation gear. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are